Hey everybody, I'm going to do a quick Photoshop lecture today on a process that I call color isolation. For this project, you're going to take an image, convert it to black and white, and then using masks, paint the color back in certain selection areas. This is a very intuitive process, so I'm not going to tell you what parts of your image that you need to paint in and out. I'm only going to show you the steps, and then you can make that choice yourself. This process works really well when you have photographs with bright colors, as I do. You can see my Spider-Man Funko figurine here. I picked this one. I took this photo because the colors of the red really popped out to me. And then we've got our zombie Iron Man over here, and I thought maybe that could be a good figure to work with as well. So our goal today is to take this image and paint out the color that is surrounding the figures, or at least the heads. So the wood grain, some of this background color that we see here with the red, we're going to take that out and then leave the color of the figurine heads in there. So it's a real simple process, but it also has steps that you have to get exactly right. So I do recommend maybe rewinding the video if you need to, because if the steps are incorrect, it's not going to work. Okay, so this process involves layers. Over on the right of your screen, you have your layer tab in Photoshop. You're going to want to click that, and you can see that we've got the background layer here of our image. We're going to take that layer and duplicate it. And the way that you do that, like make an exact copy of it, the way that you do that, you go up to the top menu bar, you're going to click Layer, Duplicate Layer, lift up on your cursor there. You don't have to relabel it. It can just be background copy. Now we have the exact same image that is stacked on top of each other. So if I hide the layer, I can't tell the difference because it looks exactly the same. Okay? The next step after that is to take the top layer and convert that to black and white. So again, you're going to go make sure that that top layer is selected, by the way. Then again, you're going to go up to the top menu bar. You're going to go to Select Image, Adjustments, and then scroll down to black and white. Okay, again, Image, Adjustments, black and white. Lift up, and then you're going to get a window that pops up like this. So you can play around with the reds and the yellows, and you can see you can get a little bit of different effects once you slide those colors around. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because that's kind of a different lecture altogether. But just keep in mind that you can drastically change your image just by manipulating the color information that is embedded in the image. Even though it's in black and white, that color information has not been thrown away. It's still there. And you can really get some nice effects by just playing around with those black and white sliders. But we're going to kind of just leave that for another time. So this looks good to me. I'm going to click OK. I've got my black and white copy on top, my background layer still in color. Okay, now this is the crucial step right here. You're going to add a mask onto the top layer. And it looks like a little white rectangle with a dark circle in the middle, almost like a flag. And if you can see that little, I'm hovering around it right here. If you click that, it's going to add a layer mask. And when you click that, you should see a white rectangle with a little blockchain symbol attached to it. This is going to allow us to paint the color back into the image using the layer mask. Okay. A lot of times people get this flipped. They leave the color image on top and the background is below, and then it won't work unless you have it looking exactly like this. Also, make sure that if you accidentally select off of that mask, you have to have that selected. And that's also a common problem that people get into. Make sure that that layer mask is actually selected. Now from here, we're going to go over to our tools on the left hand side, and we've got the brush tool. The brush tool is the tool that you're going to use. Make sure it's not the history brush tool or any other tool that may be hiding underneath there. It's actually just the straight up brush tool. Select that one, and now when you go into the image and you paint, you get this nice effect. Okay, I should also remind you that you can alter the size of the brush and the hardness of the edge. And that's where you're going to go up to the tool settings up here. And if you click this little drop down menu, you alter the size of the brush, circumference of the pixel, and then the hardness, which for this I recommend keeping the hardness on 50% or below. If we go too high on it, it's going to give us a really sharp edge, and that's going to cause noticeable edging. So what you want to do is go up, have that hardness on 50% or below, and then really quickly use the larger brush for the interior image. As I said before, just for the sake of speed, I'm going to focus on just the heads of these characters. As I zoom into my image, I typically want to go with a smaller brush so that once I zoom in, I have a greater control, but I'm still keeping that brush edge relatively soft so that it's forgiving. So maybe my brush goes over the edge of the head a little bit. Let's make sure. Yep, we're still doing fine here. Couldn't tell if I had my color in there or not because there's actually gray space on the head. So the color differences from the black and white to the colored additions are going to be subtle. And that's the nice thing about this process. There are apps out there that will do this sort of thing for you, but by actually using the brush and using this Photoshop technique, you're going to have much greater control over it. An app is going to simply go in and a little bit more haphazardly control those individual color channels. It's going to be much harder to do on your phone than actually having a systematic control. Okay, so that's good enough for now. I could also choose to go in and add in color into the armor. I'm not going to do that today for speed, but that looks decent for me. If I was spending more time on it, I probably would go real in close on those edges and make sure I got it correct, but I'm trying to keep this video relatively fast. So on the Spider-Man head here, you can see that the colors are more drastic. The red really pops out. And as I paint that in, it's very obvious. One of the cool things about this particular process is that it makes the colors look brighter than from when you're looking at the original image. So the colors are really going to pop if they're up against the black and white background. In fact, sometimes students think, does this heighten the color? It actually doesn't. It's just your eye playing a trick on you, making you think that the colors are actually brighter because you've got the contrast of against the monochromatic background. So again, notice that I lowered my brush size a little bit, going in real close, kind of going over the edge a little bit. I would go back and fix that. In fact, let's mess that up on purpose so I can go back and fix it in a second. So now I've got the head the way that I want it. I'm not going to mess with the body of the Spider-Man just for speed. But again, let's say I got a little bit sloppy and I went over the edge of the head, see down here around the neck, and I want that to be a clean edit. So what you can actually do, go over to the tools on the left hand side. We've been painting with black on the top foreground color. Just to let you know, the black, when it's set to black, that's going to paint the color back in. If you flip that to white, it does the opposite, and it actually paints the color back out. And you can just get used to that process. And flip back to black, paint that color in, and keep messing with it until you get it the way that you want it. So yeah, real important thing to get used to. It's got to be black. It's got to be set to black in the foreground and white in the background, or vice versa, or the process won't work. It's a very particular, it's not hard, but it is a very particular process. And then now I've got, you can see as we look at the whole image, the color heads really pop out, and the rest of the image, where we had some red up here earlier, if you can see that, I'll paint it back in, is a little bit distracting to the image. Now I can get rid of that and have the foreground really pop out. If you combine this process with an image with strong depth of field, then the color's really going to stand out and create a sense of nice built layers of your image. So I hope that makes sense, and have fun with your project, and I look forward to seeing what you come up with.